think that's what
Yeah, she didn't care about me as a person, just my career. That's crazy.
And it's funny that she runs a farmer's market. Sorry.
You're feeling that way. Always has this fresh feeling.
Ask a question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy crap, what is this?
I'll show you. You gotta sign some of those green papers there.
And pass them down?
I don't know how to pass them down. This is community development, which falls under your purview. And this is community development. So they spent some money here, and they need your signature to actually have it.
Did we approve them?
And then the mayor signs off.
So we approved them signing this?
You just initial it. Farmers market design. You remember?
Oh, that was last week?
Yeah.
Okay. So all I do is have to initial this?
Yeah.
Somewhere, anywhere?
Yeah, right here's good. There you go. You got it. You got it.
Who does it go to?
I know, I didn't know what to do with this. I was like, I guess I'll take it.
Man, what is this crap? I mean, is this the thing you,
Yeah, this.
that's the one I ordered in the mail. I said, we need to change the language.
Indeed.
No,
You want to sign it?
that's true. That's true. Yeah. You know, you take this sheet, and you don't have a copy of it. And you just make sure that whatever this is.
Yeah, right.
Whereas I like to call this my.
Basically,
the
make
next
sure
5
the
minutes.
numbers match it. Yeah. You're right. You're right.
Look at this color copies. This make the chain of responsible. If he submits them to us, and shows us that they're on the order and we sign it. You know, they don't audit things. Audit is a big different meeting.
That's right.
I'm gonna vote against it. This will take me as much time as this meeting will.
I'd like to call the meeting of the City Infrastructure Committee, January 9th, 2020, order. And a roll call of members.
Council Moore?
Here.
Council Gibbs?
Here.
Mayor Reed?
Here.
Council Barbell?
Here.
Council Kelly?
Here.
Council DeDominicis?
Here.
Council McFarland?
Yeah.
Now, the report from the department representatives, councilors.
Okay, we'll keep the Public Works one pretty short, just because we have a presentation we're gonna be giving you concerning Cogan Ave. Andrew will get up and do a PowerPoint presentation. Winter activities, normal stuff, plowing, sanding, salting, shoveling. Update on our winter stocks. Year to date, we've used around 1,500 tons of our salt. That leaves us about 750 ton in stock. We've reordered for not the complete balance of what we had reserved, but for another 1,000 ton. I think it leaves us in the neighborhood of 600 ton available to us. So we're on schedule. We're doing fine with that. A little bit more than I would say the normal winter, just because a lot of these little squalls we're having require us to go back out and treat. Other activities, routine maintenance. You've probably seen us. We've been clearing brush. I know we did a bunch of stuff on Pine Street. We're working South Acres Park today. Water and sewer work as permitted. Weather plays a big factor in that. When we get to sub-zero temperatures, it's kind of hard to do our maintenance work. We have had 2 emergency water breaks since the first of the year. One on New York Road, which was substantial. It was a 10-inch water line, and then also at the bottom of Battery Hill. Last Sunday, I believe it was. Both are repaired and up and running. And then the last is we've had some sewer issues on Upper Cornelia Street in what we would call Restaurant Row. We had some issues with restaurant grease. We're working with the building code enforcement officers to try to rectify that situation and also make some changes to our system there. I'm going to, unless you have any real pressing questions, I'm going to move aside because Andrew, like I said, has a lengthy presentation that needs immediate attention.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we were going to talk about the Cogan Ave Road Reconstruction Project. We are in the design phase for this project, and we've had some questions from our design far as what we would like to do for sidewalks and pedestrian access. So these are the limits for the project. We're going from Cornelia Street down to Park Ave West. Please keep in mind that whatever we do here as far as sidewalks, this is the only portion that this is gonna be done in for the time being. It will not progress down to the Ruger Street end. So this is your basic look at Cogan Ave from the street view. There's curbing in some spots, no curbing in other spots. We're gonna redo the surface, stormwater changes, and obviously we have to look at the sidewalk issues. So this is a street view down at the Ruger Street end. Originally, when they did this, they put in a pedestrian / bike lane on the west side of the road, which is the white line that you see there. We had talked at our last infrastructure meeting about the possibility of continuing with that type of pedestrian access throughout our new project. We talked to CNS engineers and they are not recommending that we do that for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that with only having it on one side of the road, you're forcing pedestrians to have to back to traffic. The other issue is people are parking inside of that pathway. So it causes pedestrians to be forced out into the roadway. Both of these are liability issues for not only the city, but also the design engineer. So they are saying that they are not willing to even consider designing it this way. So what are our options? We've got a few different options here. So this is our option one. So this is pretty similar to the Ruger Street end, but what we're gonna do is instead of having one on one side, we're gonna put a pedestrian bike lane on each side. The aerial image kind of gives you, you're looking up top here, you've got these two blue lines on the outside edge. That's our right of way. So our right of way is 66 foot wide through all of Cogan Avenue. One thing that we've got to keep in mind as we're looking at this is that these blue lines are your curb line, which are right now with this proposal, they're pretty consistent with what's existing out there, maybe a couple feet. When we start getting into adding sidewalks on one side or both sides of the road, you're going to be putting those further out into the right of way, which is going to eat up what people perceive as their yard and their driveway. So you're going to have areas where people have landscaping or where they park their vehicles that if we're going to put sidewalks there, there's going to be some unhappy people. So like I said, option one is basically staying within the existing road surface area. No sidewalk, but we would put a fog line with sharrows, pedestrian access. So we're going to go through the pros and cons of each one of these.
You have bikes sharing the lane with pedestrians.
Well, so the bikes, technically the bikes should be using the roadway, not the, but you're obviously gonna get the ones that are gonna ride in the pedestrian path. So this does meet design standards. It would not create sidewalks that the homeowners are gonna have to maintain. So if we put sidewalks in, obviously there's gonna be some unhappy homeowners that they have to now maintain those sidewalks with the current snow shoveling law that the city has. This is gonna be the cheapest option for us. And this, like I said, this fits within the current roadway width. The cons, there is still a little bit of liability here because we do not have any kind of physical barrier or separation other than a fog line between the traffic and the pedestrians on the roadway. But it is to the point to where the design engineers are comfortable enough to design it this way.
And
Yes.
how would that eliminate the cars parking lane?
So that, I'm sorry, I skipped over that one. So that's actually one of the cons of that one is we would have to eliminate parking on the street. So there would be no on-street parking where we would do that. So that makes it easier for us to maintain because then we're just plowing and pushing the snow back out of those. And then the homeowners don't have to shovel the sidewalks.
And you get rid of the liability for having to walk around parked cars.
Exactly. So option two.
Oh, hang on, before you move on, I just had a question. So looking at the colored lines that you drew, so where
Yes.
that's like almost like a navy blue line, that's where the city's right-of-way
Yes.
ends?
Yep,
So
this-
that's how much homeowners would lose in terms of
Yeah,
front yardage?
so what you're looking at is it
Which technically
existing.
isn't theirs anyway, I understand that.
Correct.
But,
So existing, what we have is, I think our roadway is just over 30 feet. So technically, if we stretched out to our boundary, people would perceive that we're taking close to 15 feet of their lawn away from them.
Right.
Which is quite substantial, especially when you're starting to get into driveways where people park. So option two would be keeping a park lane on the west side of the road, which is gonna be the Domino's Pizza Plaza side. 2 travel lanes, a curb with a 4-foot grass island, and a sidewalk.
How wide's that sidewalk?
Sidewalk would be 5 foot wide.
Good.
So the pros of this is it would meet design standards. There would be no liability issues because you are creating a physical barrier between the roadway and the pedestrians on the sidewalk. And it does not completely eliminate on-street parking. The cons, it creates a new sidewalk the homeowners have to maintain. You're placing sidewalk on one side of the road, so you're gonna get homeowners that are gonna be upset because I've got it on my side, how come they don't have it on their side? The other issue is because we would have to put the parking on the opposite side of the road, you're probably gonna get some people that are upset that they don't have parking on their side of the road. So they're getting a sidewalk that they now have to maintain, and the on-street parking is on the opposite side of the road. By putting a sidewalk in, you have to think about the long-term maintenance to the city as well. Obviously, if we have sidewalk that's going to go up and down, break, the city is responsible to fix that. The approximate cost for construction of option 2 versus option 1 is about $40,000 more to put sidewalk in. And you'd slightly be reducing the lawn space on the east side of the road where the sidewalk is. So the people on the top of the page would be losing sidewalk, or would be losing driveway and lawn space. Option 3, which would probably be the most fair option to everybody, would be sidewalks on both sides of the road. You do sidewalk, parking lane, 2 drive lanes, another parking lane, and a sidewalk. The pros is it meets all design standards, there'd be no liability issues, there would be parking on both sides of the street, and sidewalks on both sides of the street. Negatives are sidewalks that homeowners have to maintain, long-term maintenance and replacement for the city. We would be greatly reducing people's yards and driveways, especially with this one. Currently, I'd say 95% of the homes on this section of road have area to stack 2 cars deep at a minimum in their driveway for parking in the wintertime. By doing this, you're gonna eliminate it to 1. So between 1 and 2 cars, whereas right now they can probably do, 3 to 4 cars. So we're gonna take some lawn space and driveways that people aren't gonna be happy about. And then the cost of this is about $75,000 to $85,000 more than option 1.
I have a question I didn't think of until just now. Option 1, is that going to be ADA compliant?
Yes.
It is?
Yep, it
Because
will be.
it'll be the stripes on the,
Yep, so you
to
have.
create
the,
a lane?
Yep, so you have the stripes anywhere where you would come to a road intersection, there would still be a crosswalk. There's no push buttons because there's no signalized crossings until you get to Cornelia Street, and that will all be upgraded to be ADA compliant as well.
Will there be curbs?
Yes, yes, there will be
So in
curbs.
option 1, there will be curbs?
Yes, there will be
full
curbs on
length
the
of
outside, yep.
Project.
Yep, there will be curbs throughout this whole project for stormwater.
Is the road the same width on all of them?
No. As far as
What about the
curb to
driving
curb,
lanes?
the driving lanes are the same, yes. Yep, you have the 11.5-foot drive lanes throughout.
So how does option 3 fit the same, it It seems like, are you taking up more space into yards with option 3 than option 2?
Yes, because you have sidewalk on both sides versus just one side.
So why in option 3 do we have parking on both sides?
Well, we could eliminate parking
On one side?
On one side, yep.
That's on there too.
It would seem to me that you're gonna have to remove a tremendous amount of trees going down that street. They look like they're
Yes,
fairly close to
which,
the road.
really needs to be done anyways. We have issues with trees within our right of way because a lot of times our sewer lines are outside of our roadway and the tree roots tend to get into our sewer mains and cause problems. So what would be proposed is that we remove all of the existing trees within our right of way and replace them with smaller trees that aren't going to cause problems with our infrastructure.
So that's gonna happen irrespective of which option you
Correct.
choose? Okay.
But we can plant trees in that 4-foot median between the curb and the sidewalk now.
Yes.
So you will definitely be replacing those trees with something?
Yes, oh yeah,
Okay.
yep.
Okay,
Yeah, there'll be a whole landscaping plan.
okay, thank you.
Has
I'd
anybody
like
on
to
Cogan
remind
Avenue seen
everyone
this
that we're
plan?
going to need to
I'm
act
sorry?
on this fairly soon. So, hopefully by next meeting, we'll be able to act on this, because until the engineering is completed, we need to know which option we're going with. They can't finish that, and it may hold up the construction of this summer, so.
So what I proposed when we had our pre-meeting, this is my ward, and I use Cogan Avenue a lot. So I'm gonna knock on some doors on Saturday and get some, just let people know, that, you know, this is what we're considering, and maybe they would be, you know, maybe they'd be willing to come to next Thursday's meeting, or can talk to them and see where they, you know, where they feel, but, I think that I owe it to the people of my ward to knock on their door and let them know, because I'm sure most people don't know that this was something we were gonna be discussing tonight,
Yeah.
so.
And, Councilor Gibbs and myself will be prepared to make a recommendation at that time, next meeting, if need be.
Seems like an easy decision.
Andrew, are there any plans
Option
for
3 is
Cogan
blue.
Avenue to make it more of a thoroughfare than it already is, or?
Well, I guess that's your decision. If you were to choose option 3, widening this, I think you would make this more of a major city street versus a minor city street. So it's all on what you guys, how you wanna perceive Cogan Avenue. Do you wanna see it as a major city street or a minor city street?
Well, Andrew, what are the other streets around it, like the cross streets? Do they have sidewalks?
No. The
So
West
that's-
End doesn't have, that's where I live, the West End doesn't have sidewalks.
Right, the entire west end, there are no sidewalks. And actually, the south end of Cogan Avenue, I believe, is the only one that actually has that fog line for your pedestrian, access lane. I don't think I've seen that anywhere else in the west end.
My vote would be to keep the infrastructure exactly as it is, except that you're saying that curbs will be added and then lanes for bicyclists on both sides.
Right, so option 1.
So I guess I would be for option number 1.
Yep, so there would be curbing because of the water project, so there would be, room for pedestrian and travel. Yeah.
On the road.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer we need sidewalks on both sides. Although I will go check out the area, because I don't know the area very well.
I would ask, the blue line is really important.
that dark blue is your.
Yes,
dark-
the
yeah.
outside blue line, the limits. This one is. If you're gonna go out there and look at it, and if any of the council are, pace out, 5 paces. That's 15 feet from the edge of the blacktop up a driveway. And that'll give you an idea of how much of someone's yard you're gonna take away. Also think in terms of the dynamics of that home. By stretching the width out in that road, people's homes that they bought that had that much front yard and that much separation from public is now changed. That's a big deal. And a lot, you're gonna eat up some landscaping. There are properties down through there where you'll see that there's actually landscaping within our right of way. And that's also gonna be a big, you're gonna have a bunch of people very upset about that.
Yeah.
Well, you brought up another point when we were talking earlier that, on top of what you already said, that adding sidewalks here is also going to bring pedestrian traffic closer to to
That's
your front
exactly what I'm
window
saying, yes.
than they currently have.
Yeah, they're used to not having someone right next to their, certain neighborhoods in the city, there's literally, you got a street, and then you've got 4 or 5 feet in your house. I mean, the house shakes, and people are familiar with that. But in this neighborhood, they're not.
Right.
This could, this will affect that.
This seems reminiscent of the main road argument that came up.
Well,
too.
the problem with Main Road, and don't let us get off track there, Main always had sidewalks. And they're there, and you can see them, even with properties that said they didn't have sidewalks, if you go to aerials on a dry summer day, you can see where they went right over the top of the sidewalk, the topsoil, and planted sod.
You can actually go to past aerial imaging from the, late nineties where you could actually see the sidewalk in their yards. So that was the reason why they were made to have sidewalks, is because they always had sidewalks there. These people have never had sidewalks here. So that's kind of the conundrum we have here.
And that was, I believe that when that area, that part of the city was developed, the intent was that these houses is a home just like this, with no sidewalk and kind of a sprawling front yard.
But this is like a suburban area. There's a lot of kids around. There's a park not too far down the street. There's
Yep.
a lot of people walking on these roads, and because they have to walk on the road, there's no sidewalks.
But we're really only talking about this one little section too.
Yeah,
right?
that's the
I
other
mean,
thing.
is there, are we planning on eventually sidewalks
Eventually,
everywhere?
you have to carry through, as I said, we're not talking about this council, we're talking about councils down the road, and we had this conversation, and mayors down the road, that will have to address what's gonna happen in, Kennedy Ave, or, any of the other, anything else in the West End, because if we start doing it this way, we should be consistent with it, they're gonna have to deal with the uproar, some people might like it, like Pat, and some people might be very upset.
You almost need to look at a comprehensive plan for the city and say, okay, we feel that the West End never had sidewalks, so we don't wanna have sidewalks there, or we do wanna change that and put sidewalks there, so that future councilors can go back to that comprehensive plan and say, okay, the whole plan was to put sidewalks in this area, so we're gonna continue to put sidewalks in this area. Or we're going to continue to do the fog line on each side of the road. Whatever you do here should be integrated into some kind of a comprehensive plan that future councils can look at and say, this was the plan for the future, this is how we're gonna continue to do the West End or the French Quarters.
Yeah.
Well, I think that,
Not
in
just
the,
live it out of this,
Exactly.
deciding what we wanna do for the West End.
Unfortunately,
in neighborhoods where there's a lot of through traffic, I think that is where sidewalks are warranted. In the West End, apart from, Cogan, which isn't heavily trafficked, it's heavier towards the Domino's end where
Right.
there's Cornelia, and there's an apartment complex around the corner there. But I travel through Cogan all the time, and it's not a main thoroughfare.
right,
And most of the West End is just,
yeah, Cogan,
Very
Cogan's
pedestrian
the
friendly.
only cut through until you get to Leonard, and then, Healy up by, the coffee shop.
And Leonard's weird, because that first block is one way.
It's one way, yeah, yep.
Leonard, yeah.
Park Avenue to Healy is very well traveled.
Yes, it is.
It's
Yep.
high traffic area.
Yep.
They don't go down Aaron that much, but you do go down Kennedy quite a bit to cross over to Ruger.
Right, which I think is probably way more heavily trafficked.
Yeah, and you also have college housing back there. Well, that's where you live.
Where I
There's
live.
college housing back there, and that's where the traffic back and
A
forth
lot
from
of
there.
traffic there. But Park to Healy is
Yeah.
very, very busy all the time.
Are you aware of accidents to kids on these streets on the West End?
I
Probably
am
not.
That'd be something we'd have to talk to the police chief about to see if he has record.
I mean, we're talking about the need for sidewalks now, and how many years have they been there? And have their kids been hit by cars or whatever, and if they're not, I mean, maybe we're saying there's a big problem that really isn't a problem,
Maybe
because
some
you've got 20 years of people living on this street, walking around these streets and no accidents.
Well,
I
if we
don't
have a
know
bike
where we
path-
would have that.
If we have a bike path for pedestrians too, we should really make sure it's only used for bikes and pedestrians, you don't have cars straddling it and all that kind
It
of
would
stuff.
it'd be a step in the right direction.
Are we able to, have we had the technology to color our bike paths green like they do in some communities?
That gets pretty expensive, and like we saw over by GP when they did that, it lasted for about 2 months. So we stopped doing it at the GP crossing because you pay a ton of money to do it, and like I said, 2 months later, it's completely gone.
Yeah, Mike talked about this with like rainbow crosswalks or something, I remember.
Yeah, as soon as you start running traffic, and in the wintertime you run plows, and that was epoxy, which is what we use for our symbols, and wording on any sort of city streets and crosswalks. That holds up better, but it's still like, that green came right off. It's very salt in the winter and ultraviolet in the summer. Adios.
Is there a way to get feedback from people on Cogan Avenue, since we're talking about changing a big part of their life?
Well, that's what
And they're-
Elizabeth's talking about, but be also careful that you don't just talk to people on Cogan Avenue, because people are gonna be walking around there, turn onto Cogan, walking their dogs, people will be walking from Dennis
Well,
Avenue.
could we
and so
put
forth.
this out that this is a plan the city is gonna be taking action on in 2 weeks, or whatever it is, that you said, Jeff, and that, we invite them to come to the council or whatever and
Could we
talk
do
about it?
could we do a media, some kind of media statement?
Yeah, I'd
on this?
recommend you talk to the neighbors, then on Monday we put out a press release of some sort.
Okay, I think that's a
Okay,
good
yeah.
idea.
Yeah, it seems like we wanna decide like if we wanted to go to some complete streets
Yeah, I don't wanna
approach
be
in the West
surprised.
End.
Yeah, well, I think the full plan, a full plan makes sense. You know, you don't wanna start adding piecemeal sidewalks without.
And I have
Yeah.
one note on the thing that Andrew mentioned about the comprehensive plan. The city's comp plan was last updated in 1999. The city just this week released an RFP for a consultant to assist us with, among other things, updating that comprehensive plan. So rather than the council making a decision in isolation that might fundamentally alter the character of the West End, you can go with a more modest proposal like option one, and then have the larger conversation within the context of the comprehensive plan about what changes to the West End might make sense for the entire area without committing yourself to something here.
Because you could always go back later on and put sidewalks in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if you do option one, we stay within our existing footprint, and then if need be later on, we go back and we can add sidewalks later on.
There are places in the city where you have a sidewalk for like one property and then it like ends. I guess over in Cumberland Avenue.
Well, and that's the thing, it's not an issue until someone is forced to maintain it under penalty of, a financial penalty. I mean, when we passed it, it used to be complaint driven for snow shoveling, now you go out and police it, and people get fines and we charge them to clear the sidewalk. People don't like that. And then when you start taking away parking in front of a house, and it's inequitable, one side gets parking, one side doesn't. One guy gets sidewalk, one guy doesn't. One guy loses front yard, one guy doesn't. That's where the issue comes up.
Andrew, can you, or can this be published on our site?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that people can go to it?
I'll send a copy of it to Beth, and we'll get it up on the website, and, like the mayor said, we'll, shoot something out, do a media blitz and say, hey, we're looking for your recommendations. Come to Thursday's meeting and, give public comment, and then you guys can hear the public comment and make a decision during the meeting.
And Elizabeth, do you still intend to go out this
Mhm.
weekend and would you report back to us on what
Oh,
you
yeah,
find, please?
yeah, I'll go out on Saturday, because the stretch, that's being affected isn't really that long, it's not huge. So I'll knock on some doors and hand out some business cards.
But yeah, like Andrew says, this will affect probably the whole area.
It will,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, if the decision is made to change into sidewalks, it's going to create it's gonna change the whole neighborhood.
It's 5
Where I walk
o'clock,
my dog
with your
is on the
permission,
side.
can we have a recess to conduct a short public hearing scheduled for 5 PM? So I'd like to call to order to conduct a public hearing. City of Plattsburgh is holding a public hearing to hear public comment on the performance of the City of Plattsburgh's current Community Development Block Grant, CDBG project, NYS CDBG project number 927 PF 141-16, Lakeview Towers Elevator with a funding amount of $300,000. Any members of the public who'd like to come and comment, please come forward and sign the sign-up sheet as well. Going once, twice. Thank you. Into the public hearing. Continue.
At least for things like that.
Yep, we're still in our committee meeting. Do we have any other reports, Jeff?
I don't know if Jonathan had anything. Jonathan, do you have
John?
anything to bring up at this time? Or?
No, I don't.
Okay, very good. At this time, we'd like to entertain a motion to take items 1 through 8 and bring them forward to the regular agenda, as approved by the committee and recommended to the council.
Well, I think we have an addition.
We do. Could we add number 9 to this? This is a memorandum of agreement with the town of Plattsburgh. They made that request to us this week. Just only a few moments ago, we got some final language approved by the town for your consideration.
Oh,
As you read through it, it's pretty simple. It has no financial obligation to the city. What they would like to do is have us include an extended part of our Terry Gordon bike path, which is, as you know, part of the Empire Trail pathway system, extend a portion into their project, which is right at the city-town border on our south side on the lake. Some of you may know that is just by Lake Forest and the Kennedy Tall Pines housing project.
Would it continue near the lake, or would it come out towards the road right there?
Well, it's a little bit off the lake on this, the non-lake side of the railroad tracks. And what we proposed is we'd very much like to see their project succeed. Obviously, they would like to have that trailhead extended a little bit farther to have people flow from the old base into their development. So my proposal was, we've been talking for an awful long time on doing something more with our shoreline, including the old base, Rotary Park. Farther up to the north is the Soldiers Point, and to the south, of course, is the location for the town of Plattsburgh development. So I propose that resources or desire available, we'd also like to have more people flow in and try to improve that area so people can have a really continuous path, eventually all the way from downtown, right along the beach, right to their location. And so have this kind of, we'll all be sharing in their Battlefields Gateway project.
Okay, I'd like to amend that to items 1 through 9.
Well, we have 2 more.
But I'm going to be also making 2 appointments, renewals in this case, to the zoning board. I think most of you are familiar with these 2 individuals. I'll be handing down the reappointment of zoning board chair Ron Noland for a 5-year term to begin on January 10th, 2020, expiring December 31st, 2024. And appropriate time, that would require a roll call. And I'll be handing down the reappointment of zoning board regular member Kathleen Inslee for another 5-year term to begin on January 10th, 2020, and expiring December 31st, 2024.
Okay, so we'll be adding this MOA, so that'll be item I, item I, and then the zoning appointment for Ron Nolan will be J, and then, who was the
Kathleen Inslee.
Kathleen Inslee will be item K, and those will be roll call votes, right? Okay, so I'll make the motion to add those.
I'll second.
Okay,
Council Moore?
Yes.
Council Gibbs?
yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
Okay, is there any old business? If not, is there any new business? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Council Moore?
Yes,
Council Gibbs?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
meeting is adjourned.
All right.
So we'll begin our work session then, and afford us any additional time for discussion on items on the agenda tonight. And we can also visit all your various council reports at that time too. To begin though, any further discussion on agenda items for tonight's meeting?
I actually have a question. With the reappointments, Ron Noland is my father-in-law, so I just want to, I don't know if I should recuse myself or.
Yeah, you can just recuse yourself.
I don't know, that's fine.
Mhm.
I don't know Ron Nolan, so it's not too, I met him once.
I did have a question. I took a picture of it and I'm gonna locate it right now. And it was on the levy tax collection, which I think is 7A, right? That's the item. I just had questions about some of the language in here that I just wanted it clarified because I'm not super familiar with it. Where it talks about delinquent public works, delinquent water, delinquent sewer, delinquent waste collection. If I could get an explanation, I'm not really.
Whenever those are uncollected, they remain with the property. So
Okay.
we have to re-levy those as part of the property taxes. There's a lot of reasons why they're not collected. Mostly, the biggest reason for water and sewer is that water and sewer accounts have been allowed to be put in the names of tenants as opposed to the property owners. And the tenants will default on those, and then the property owners have to bear the brunt of having it re-levied on their property taxes. They don't like it, but it's just the nature of the beast.
Okay, that's what I thought, but thank you.
It's only 21,000.
Right, it's not a huge sum.
22,700 this year.
Right, it's not a huge sum.
No. It was 21,000 last year, so we're a little bit higher this year than last. But that's because we have some large bills at one of the local trailer parks for someone who really abused the water service and just let it run indiscriminately. And they were subletting, let's say, on the property. They were renting a trailer from an owner of the trailer who's renting from the property owner of the trailer park. And so the true, let's say, tenant, which would be the trailer owner, should be responsible for that water, but on subletting it, it makes it more difficult to collect when people just abuse it. So we're putting together facts to present to the mayor and the council about making certain we don't get into those issues with water accounts anymore. We're actually issuing the accounts to some entities, I guess you would say, right, Dean? So,
Okay.
and Dean, of course, would have to weigh in on that too, because the property owners come to us and say, why don't you collect these? And we say, hey, very difficult for us to collect these because, you know, they're a sub of your tenant, and it's like, how do we have any recourse on them at all, other than assigning it to your property? And the trailers that are on the property aren't even considered part of the real property. So, anyway, that was like $2,600 of the 22,000. And one very pissed off property owner.
Any other items like to have further discussion?
We also have in that tax levy the return of unpaid school taxes, $1,200,000.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to flesh out a little bit more the implications of that, because that's significant?
Well, the significance there is that the school district turns us over to our office because we're the tax enforcing agent for the city properties. And once the school taxes aren't paid by November 30th, they compile a list by the middle of December and send it on to the city. We used to add those as a separate tax lien in our files, but now we'll be levying those with the property tax bills, and the school board approved doing that, or agreed to do that. And we're doing it exactly the way the county does it with every other jurisdiction. So it makes the collection easier, it's more efficient for our office, we don't have to have two separate tax liens for the same year that are colliding with each other, especially when delinquencies occur for writing 24-month payment arrangements. And it's a very large sum of money every year that the school district turns over to us. Normally, some 300 to 400 taxpayers haven't paid their taxes and we have to collect it.
Yeah.
And
How is that?
We have to guarantee that tax roll after the second year.
Do you know how that compares to other municipalities around us? Do you know how that compares to other townships around us?
For returns of unpaid school
Yeah,
taxes? No,
like
I have
amount.
never compared that, but I could take a look at it and see, I can get some information on that.
Might be-
Certainly, the county would know that very easily, because they're relevying the school taxes for all of the towns and villages throughout the county.
Mhm.
300 out of, say, 4,900? City gets a collection fee of 5%. It's about $53,000 this year. So that's our fee for doing the collection, carrying the tax roll for 2 years and then guaranteeing the end.
Hmm. Okay.
Of course, if someone doesn't pay by the end of that 2-year period, we're going to be foreclosing on that property and recovering for those taxes. Except for properties that are abandoned, the city's not taking title to. We have a runoff.
Okay.
When
Is that
is the school made whole for
15 South
those,
Street.
is the school made whole for those properties that are abandoned and we
Yep.
won't foreclose?
Yep.
So where's that money come from?
It comes from the eventual collection of those taxes, and if we don't, then it comes out of the taxpayer's side.
City taxpayer side?
Yep.
So basically, the city taxpayers are guaranteeing that the school district collects their revenue.
And the county. Yeah, that's why we should foreclose on those properties immediately and get them back on the tax rolls and get them sold.
So if there's a property like Couch Street, which we're not likely to get back on the tax roll,
Not now, because it's amassed about $26,000 worth of back taxes, so we're never gonna be able to foreclose on that and auction that to recover.
so the county and the school district are made whole, they're paid for those losses.
Yep.
And that comes from the city taxpayers to
That's right.
guarantee those funds which we'll never see
That's right.
to the school district and county.
Yeah, it behooves the city to either foreclose on it immediately after the first tax period is missed, or to, have the assessment reduced to a minimum for abandoned property.
Which is why abandoned properties can end up being incredibly expensive for the city. We're not just losing our tax revenue, but we're also losing the revenue we pay to other jurisdictions to make them whole.
Well, this was the purpose of the land banks, right, to kind of address this issue.
And we
That's right.
address it, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Are we finished discussing the agenda items?
The only thing I'd have is committee reports at this point, so please go ahead.
Okay, we're being asked to sign warrants tonight, just like we always do. And I just want to let the council know that some of the numbers they don't necessarily add up to what you see on these sheets. But if you aggregate them, they do, so. There are 2019 and 2020 warrants there, right? And one other question.
The combination of the warrants does equal the total, and anything with a tab on it needs to be signed individually, because those are items that were over $1,000 that didn't have a PO done on them.
Right, and who signs those? Is it
Any three.
any three counselors? Okay,
After review, yes.
okay. And then, last week, you had you had 6 people sign for payroll, is that,
Which happens every week, plus the mayor.
so that should be done again?
Yeah.
Have
You
we
keep
always-
remembering that only 3 signed was when you came to my office, and there were only 3 counselors coming in that day to do it, and you signed the mayor pro tem, but every week we get all 6 counselors and the mayor to sign the payroll.
None of us recall doing that, Richard.
No, I never do it.
It was only 3.
I mean, we can do it, we can do it.
Stamp it
You only
with
stamped
6.
3.
We stamp it with the 6 signature blocks.
Not until just recently. Just till last week.
I'll pull everything we've done for the last year and show you.
They always only have 3
I even
signed.
confirmed it with Julie. I said, don't we have the 6 signature blocks, and we have all 6 signatures plus the mayor? And she said, yeah, every week.
No way.
It always, since I've been here, there's only three that sign
Do-
up, except with the week that we've had like a special, like last week was amazing. That was really fun.
Is that what you want us to do going forward, is all
But if someone's
6
sick though, it misses it.
signatures on payroll?
Do what you want.
No, we wanna do what's right. That's,
Patrick doesn't want to sign anything, he told me that.
Yes, I know.
he says a lot of stuff nobody listens to.
That's also true.
Pardon me?
Well, what is, I mean, is there a
I think in our
there's
pre-audit-
legality
Yeah, I
to
think
this?
we had language in our, we can check it, I don't know if we have it right in front of us, but we have the organizational rules list that we approved last week, and I believe it calls for at least 3 signatures for the pre-audit committee.
Yeah.
Right. So then we only need 3 for payroll then, is what you're
But,
saying.
well, Richard's saying we need 6 for payroll.
If you just want to do 3, that's fine.
We wanna do what's right.
Yeah, it describes the pre-audit committee shall be composed of any 3 members of the common council, including the mayor as a member thereof.
So it would seem to me 3 signatures are legal.
6 doesn't hurt, but it sounds like.
I just wanna make sure we're legal. Okay.
Three's
you.
fine if you want to do just 3 plus the mayor and a date.
Okay,
Thank you, Mike.
I'm gonna pass this back to you and ask you to sign these tabs,
yeah.
please. Okay.
Any other items on the agenda you'd like to have a little bit further discussion? You have in your packet the usual committee reports for the beginning of the year. Are there any additional reports beginning with government strategy and city operations, Councilor Barbell?
No report.
City infrastructure, Councilor Moore.
We just had our meeting, and it was quite lengthy. I'm just taking a little while to digest this, but if I'm understanding correctly, how long does it take before, on these delinquent properties, do we take before we foreclose on them? Is it
2 years.
like
There's a 2-year redemption period. So let's say, for instance, we're going to be sending out tax
The
bills
tabs too.
effective in January 1st, 2020. We're allowed to foreclose on properties beginning in October of 2021. So that by the end of 24 months, we'll be able to foreclose on the properties.
Okay, so it costs us money in the city if we fail to act on these, we end up paying that. It's
Yeah.
pretty
When I first
enforceable.
came to work here in 2007, there was $1,200,000 of uncollected delinquent property taxes. And we cleaned it up dramatically. Right now, we have 1 property we're gonna have to foreclose on for $1,250. The unfortunate part of 15 Couch Street is that we didn't foreclose on it right away and sell it to someone who would demolish it, take care of the remediation of any of the environmental issues, and get it back on the tax roll. And now that it's accumulated $26,000 worth of combined taxes for city, county, and school since 2014, it's very unlikely that the city would recover on that. But it's still possible to recover something on it if someone's willing to buy it and demolish it. And
There's a risk on certain properties that no one would buy it, and then in that case, the city would retain title to that property.
And
So most properties still have value in them regardless of their condition, but some rare properties are negatively valued potentially, and therefore no one may purchase it, which would then default back to the city retaining title.
Was there a reason it wasn't foreclosed on back in 2014?
Because of that reason, that
Th-
risk
that was
of,
yeah.
the analysis of, it's well underwater, so therefore any purchaser would be basically buying debt, buying liability.
But is the city gonna keep paying the school and county taxes on it indefinitely?
As a city,
Have
as
to.
enforcement, yeah, we have to. Yeah, so to modify that, we'd have to do a major overhaul of the city code, potentially the city charter, and also have some kind of understanding or agreement with the county to take up that role. So it's not just a simple fix, it requires a fair amount of legwork, and changes to our, paradigm changes.
the big question to me is, why is it still assessed at $65,000?
Yeah, if it was assessed at 0 or fair market value.
It's still assessed at 65,000?
Yeah.
So yeah, the assessment
That's why
should
it's
change to
still
0, and then at
accumulating
least
taxes.
we're not
If
getting
it's
more.
a type of property that doesn't have any value or negative value, why wouldn't it be 0 assessment? And then it wouldn't have a tax issue being created every year. So this is a question that's always bothered me about it since it started.
Yeah, that's what you were saying, it makes sense to reassess an abandoned property, because if it's not producing taxes, then the city's just paying out to
And if it's suggestively has no value to it and can't be foreclosed on and resold and got back into the tax rate or tax rolls, then why not assess it at zero?
Was the property reassessed when the properties were reassessed?
Yeah, it was previously assessed in the several $100,000 amount. The
Right.
65 was representative of the post-fire assessed value. Probably, you know, the land value plus some improvements on the property.
This can become
So why
costly.
can't we do this? Why,
Because you
Wait.
have a real property and get a reassessment.
You have to talk to the assessor.
Yeah, the council doesn't set the value, it's the assessor, so.
and that's a county position. right?
What's the reason why this property won't sell? Forget about the
It
building.
could sell, it's just, it's a risky proposition, that it may not sell. And in that case, then the city's left holding title to the property.
Assume I wanna buy this.
Then it's offered for sale.
Yeah, no,
The owner has his name.
I'm just saying, I don't understand, that's not a bad location in the city.
The building on the property was on fire.
Yes, I've
So
seen it.
the demolition clause will probably exceed the value of what's there, so you're gonna take a loss right off the bat. So
Whatever, go
demo
buy
that building, the property, it's right up against the property lines and that's next to Carroll's, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that is the issue. Demo of that property and like Richard said, environmental issues and everything else is what's driving that up. It's vermiculite.
Is what?
There's
Vermiculite,
friable.
which is asbestos, yes.
And it was owned by an LLC, which just dissolved when the building
Actually, I
burned.
don't think it's dissolved.
LLC hasn't dissolved, it's just.
They don't want, they want us to sue them, basically. And we've tried, and they've been very difficult legally, with all kinds of maneuvering.
I'm impressed.
So can we, is there any way to get the county assessor to change?
Yeah, well, certainly we wouldn't want to set a precedent where the common council was directing the assessor to make a certain decision, but certainly, you know, we can inquire whether he can reevaluate it and put through a normal course without a specific pressure. We don't want to set a precedent where the council, where politics were, or the perception of politics were impacting the assessor's valuation.
The other thing with abandoned properties, remember, we're trying to get abandoned properties redeveloped, so to have this new principle that if you've got a property that you don't have much value for, you can all of a sudden have it declared to be zero value, so you don't have to pay any more property taxes on it.
It's a
This
very,
encourages people to keep properties vacant for even longer, so it's a lot of policy issues floating around here that we have to sort out.
Okay.
I'm glad we're talking about this. It's important for the public to know that this problem exists, not just at that one address, but at any address.
nice update on me for sure.
Potentially, in many addresses, this is the only one that's fallen into that set of circumstances.
That's right. All the other property tax issues are being dealt with. There's only one property on the list that has to be foreclosed on this year, and it's unfortunate that, it's just one installment from the 2018 property taxes. Everything else is paid currently, and nobody's taking an interest in it because the owner has died, and I guess the relatives just don't care. It's nice property.
You're talking about a different property now than the one up on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said like 1,500.
1,250 is the only amount on this one. Of course, it's assessed at 196,000, so foreclosing on that and taking and selling that is gonna be a windfall for the city, but we don't wanna do that. We don't want to foreclose on properties. We just wanna get the taxes paid for, but no one's responding on this at all. So, it's sad.
Hmm.
Sorry to get everybody off track, but
Good
I'm
question.
thinking
You
about
got
that.
way into property tax issues. You didn't even wanna talk about that.
It was good information, though.
That's
It is, it's good discussion.
Finance and Budget, Counselor Kelly?
I will be out of town next week for our Finance and Budget Committee meeting, so I've asked Jeff Moore to chair that meeting. I would like to Skype in and participate.
We'll set
I
that.
can't.
And we'll, try to have our 2019 end of the year, at least roughly close, so we can start doing the 5 to 10 year projections with Richard's office for that meeting.
Yeah, one other thing is that I'd like to see a demo of OpenGov again for our council. Jeff and Ira and I, and probably some others too, have been playing with it. It's a wonderful tool. So I'd like to look at it again and see if we can use it to solve some problems.
Richard, did I see, another revision to Open Gov data-wise to incorporate more recent data?
I sent the numbers, I don't know if they've been updated, last I checked was still the numbers from before.
Okay.
So,
I just wanna echo what Council Kelly said. I know I've been looking in there and I noticed that some of the recent decisions that we've made for the budgetary process, we were on the right track. You know, there was things that were trending down and we addressed them. There were things that were trending up and verifies that we were heading in the right direction in some things. So I find it very helpful. It's gonna be good.
And Counselor Barbell had some suggestions as well. He's willing to work a little bit to have more features that the council's looking for incorporated into it. Anybody who's free at 9 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays is usually when our work session is with Open Gov. Except for next week. Public safety, Counselor Gibbs.
So Ira and I met earlier this week, so I could bring him up on, various things that we've been talking about, staffing, personnel, budget issues. And so we have committed to work together over the next several weeks to set goals and objectives for police, fire, and code enforcement. And next Wednesday, we have a meeting set with Chief Lawless.
Plattsburgh Public Library, Counselor Dominicus.
Nothing yet, just gonna be reaching out to Ann and getting up to speed on what's going on there, so chat soon.
And then board meetings are 2:30 of the fourth Thursday of the month, is that right?
4:30.
4:30.
Fourth.
Thursday. Tuesday? Thursday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Okay.
Kinda like Rich with 6 signatures, now wait a minute.
4:30, fourth Tuesday.
But we send out a packet to representatives.
Excellent, thank you.
And MLD Board President, Counselor McFarland.
Not a lot of updates, just to remind everyone, the 30th of this month, we will have an MLD meeting, so mark your calendars accordingly. Should be interesting. I'll probably reach out through you to meet with Manager Tracy beforehand, but other than that, no updates.
And I'm gonna ask Manager Tracy to look at that utility pole at the corner of Bridge Street and Green Street. The one that's kind of jutting a little bit into that intersection there. See if we can clean up that intersection a little bit. I know that Matt Miller thought that'd be a nice priority to be able to mainstream people more down to the farmers market. So let's see from an engineering perspective what we'll be able to do with that corner.
And there's like a defunct railroad section there that I feel like you could like pave over or make that would be a nice like raised sort of walkway that would lead down, that could cross near the railroad station to the sidewalk that's over there.
There'll be a major reworking in a few years with regard to the Saranac River Trail down there, but in the meantime, it would be nice to do a few cosmetic things to make it a little bit more comfortable and mainstream. So that's the end of the reports. Let's begin with our council meeting then. We'll begin tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed,
Present.
Councilor Barbell,
Here.
Councilor Kelly,
Here.
Councilor Gibbs,
Here.
Councilor Dominicus,
Here.
Councilor McFarland,
Here.
Councilor Moore,
Here.
Just a short announcement. I made my way down to Albany to see the State of the State address yesterday. There's some things that should particularly please the city of Plattsburgh. The governor feels very strongly on issues of water security, which obviously we think about an awful lot in the city as well. On returning our environment to more of a natural state, including a program to remove dams to let streams run wild, and I know that this council feels very strongly on that issue and the Imperial Dam as well. And there'll be a big push for electric vehicles in the state, and as you know, that's a great fit for the city of Plattsburgh because of our very low electricity rates and our investment in infrastructure there. So I think that the governor's approach will will benefit Plattsburgh in a number of ways in the upcoming year. And that's it. Please continue.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting and the organizational meeting of the Common Council held on January 2nd, 2020 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor DeDominicis. All in favor? Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending January 8th, 2020 in the amount of $57,346.20 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Counselor Kelly, second by Counselor Moore. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. You gave your various reports and considered the reports in your packet. Are there any additional reports you'd like to offer this time? Seeing none further, resolved that the reports as listed are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor Moore. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. No correspondences or recommendations from boards at this time. Please continue.
Resolved that the bills honored by the Common Council for the week ending January 10th, 2020 in the amount of $997,147.86 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Counselor Kelly, second by Counselor Gibbs. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. At this part of the meeting, we ask any members of the public who'd like to come and address the council on any issues on the agenda tonight to please come forward. There's agendas just outside the door if you don't already have them. And there's another public comment period in general at the end of the meeting as well. Seeing no takers, please continue.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the city chamberlain to carry out the attached resolution authorizing levying the property tax for the fiscal year 2020 as further evidenced by the attached 2020 tax warrant for the city of Plattsburgh and the attached County of Clinton's 2020 tax warrant certifying the city of Plattsburgh's share of the 2020 county tax levy and for re-levying the return of unpaid 2019 to 2020 Plattsburgh City School tax with other such omitted property taxes and delinquent charges as shall be deemed appropriate to collect.
Moved by Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor Kelly. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yeah.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the city chamberlain to adjust the 2020 budget adjustment for the under budgeted estimated revenue for an assessment change in the 2020 omitted real property taxes related to the Vilas home for the 2019 property tax year. The additional revenue was authorized by an order from the court related to a change in real property assessment of the property, and this increase in appropriations will increase the general fund budgeted estimated revenues by $2,440.64 in 2020.
Moved by Counselor Gibbs and second by Counselor Moore. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in
Beth, I'd
accordance.
like to waive a reading on items number 7C and D and move to resolution on both items.
Moved by Counselor McFarland, second by Counselor DeDominicis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion on the items themselves. And C and D. Seeing none, roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the city chamberlain to create capital project H832080 2020 water system improvements for the items included in the 2020 capital expenditure plan under the category water distribution system at a cost of $819,000.
Moved by Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor Barbell. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request.
Beth,
of
I'd like to
the-
waive a reading and move to a resolution on items number 7F and 7G together.
Moved by Counselor McFarland, second by Counselor Barbell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion on the items themselves. Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves that the mayor is authorized to sign the acknowledgement and acceptance form for the $3 million Water Infrastructure Improvement Act grant award per the December 23rd, 2019 letter from Environmental Facilities Corporation.
Moved by Counselor Moore, second by Counselor Gibbs. Discussion.
And remind me, this is the one where we can borrow more, but the city is on the hook for 40% of matching, so I think if we accept this, we are accepting this, we have to match 2 million, is that correct?
I can't recall the details of that.
And then we can- I think John was, this is the one where John was talking about, we can, the smallest amount we can borrow or go for is 5 million, where the city tips in 2, but we can go all the way up to 19 and a half
19,
million,
that's right.
yeah.
That's right.
We've got a bond resolution in place for this for 17,842. So that's the extent of this project. And I think the other one for the pollution control fund is 19 million.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, there is a matching, I just don't recall the amount.
Yeah, I think it's 40%.
I think you're right.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Items I, J, and K were added during the committee meeting. Whereas the city of Plattsburgh owns and maintains approximately 2 miles of trail at the former Plattsburgh Air Force Base known as the Terry Gordon Bike Path, and whereas the Terry Gordon Bike Path is scheduled for upgrades in 2020, which coincides with the town of Plattsburgh's plans to develop the Battlefields Memorial Gateway BMG located at the terminus of the Terry Gordon Bike Path. Whereas the BMG plan includes a multi-use path which will connect to the Terry Gordon Bike Path and will provide an opportunity for further extension of the Empire State Trail and offer additional amenities along an already picturesque path. Now therefore, the City of Plattsburgh Common Council duly convened does hereby resolve that the City of Plattsburgh enter into a memorandum of understanding with the town of Plattsburgh to collaborate and provide recreational and cultural benefits to city and town residents along with multitudes of visitors, and further be it resolved that the Common Council authorizes the mayor to sign the memorandum of understanding.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Barbell, second by Counselor McFarland. Discussion.
Just a quick question. You said that the town has already, this is the town's revision, so they've.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just about half an hour ago.
Yep, thanks.
Any further discussion?
Well, it's nice to see that they're willing to collaborate with the city.
It is, it's exciting.
It is.
Roll call.
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Where did I put that? And first, I'd like to hand down the reappointment of zoning board chair to Ronald Nolan for a 5-year term to begin on January 10th, 2020 and expire December 31st, 2024. I call for a roll call.
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
I'm gonna recuse myself.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
And the second, I'd like to hand down the reappointment of zoning board regular member to Kathleen Inslee for a 5-year term to begin on January 10th, 2020, expiring December 31st, 2024. Roll call.
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Of course.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
And I appreciate these 2 fine people be willing to serve again to the zoning board. No travel requests at this time. Are there any resolutions for initial consideration? Any new business or additional councilor reports?
I will say I have gotten a constituent complaint. I'll probably bring it up next week at the Public Safety Committee meeting.
It's 2 weeks.
I'll probably bring it up next week and 2 weeks again. No, but complaining about the lack of enforcement in the city's ban on smoking on public property. And as a member of the community as well, I would say I'm a little disappointed in that as well. I have noticed that you can still like walk through cigarette smoke, especially since it leads to like the most littered item in the world. It bothers me a little bit then too, but I did get a call from a constituent who wanted me to address that. Basically, since we passed it, sees that it's been widely ignored.
Doesn't our parking enforcement officer have minor code enforcement capabilities as well to help you with enforcement of that? And there's people walking up and down every day in the streets. Maybe it's something we should make aware to our parking enforcement officer as well.
I think that would be great, yeah.
Will do. Thank you. Any other new business or council reports? Please, Councilor Kelly.
I'd just like to thank the row of students in the back for attending tonight, and you actually seem interested in what we had to say. And sometimes we're not interested in what we have to say. So thank you very much for attending, and thank you for keeping the cell phones in your pockets. That's a real nice thing to see also. Thank you. Please come back again sometime.
Any other new business or council reports? At this time, we open up for public comment. Any public comment of mutual interest on any issue, please come forward. Dave, were you here when we mentioned that we'd like to do something more with that corner of Green and Bridge Street adjoining our building?
No, I was not.
Yeah, I know there's a large hydro utility pole kind of in
Yes.
a very awkward position there. We're gonna see if there's something we can possibly do with that. I'm gonna speak with you about how to access some of that land where the railroad line is running up
Yes.
to allow for some pedestrian flow or something through there.
Yes, that's something we've been interested in quite a while.
Excellent, thank you,
So feel free anytime.
thank you. Any other members like to please come about comment? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor McFarland. Roll call?
Councilor Barbell?
Yes.
Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilor Gibbs?
Yes.
Councilor DeDominican?
Yes.
Councilor McFarland?
Yeah.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
Thank you folks for coming.
I was gonna throw them out of there. They used to keep all the stuff. I had a binder this big that I never read, so.
I wanna like figure out a system like scanning it at home and then recycle it. Yes.
So this is the only thing I have to keep, because like, you can kind of cruise through it and get a feel for the ups and downs and stuff. So I'm thinking maybe with the, That's genius, anything? What teacher makes you come in?
Yeah, I guess a cold one.
Here? You can sign also name. Well, this is already signed. The other students sign their name, position.
How you doing?
Thank you very much.
You want me to sign?
Thanks for coming.
You see that?
Oh, you're very welcome.
Hope we don't get in trouble.
Julie insisted that 6 signatures.
Well,
I think I've never really paid attention to how many.
if she
But the reason we
continues to
did.
feel that way, we'll give her 6.
No, that's, I think three's fine, but the reason,
Bet against you last time and taking that grant out of your wallet.
The other thing we need to do is to support.
You might have won, but Julie assures me that there should be 6.
well, there has been 6. So I think she's made a mistake. You don't have to sign it.
Next week.
It's okay. The reason we did 6 on that budgetary thing was just so that all the members of the council
are agreeing that the manager's salaries are correct.
Yeah.
Because it's in the budget, and we don't have a contract. Some angry people. It's not,
True,
it's not a
okay,
union
yeah,
contract issue.
that's sort of takes the place of a contract. And we're all in agreement.